Hello. As you've learned in the past few videos, identifying and assessing risks is a crucial part of the project planning process. These exercises help clarify the most important risks for you and your team and ensure that everyone agrees on which risks to plan for. But it's not enough for you and your teammates to simply be aware of the biggest risks to a project. You also need to communicate these risks to your project stakeholders, whether through documentation, email, meetings, or other forms of communication you've deemed appropriate. Your stakeholders need to be aware of the risks facing a project, because if you don't tell your stakeholders about important risks, they may be less equipped to help you if an issue does arise. For example, they might not be able to provide you with more budget should you need it, or with more resources should you require them. Even worse, your stakeholder might be caught off guard by an issue. Unpleasant surprises like these can erode their trust in you as a leader of the project. They'll likely want to know if you were aware of the possibility that this risk could occur, and they might wonder why you didn't share this information with them sooner. That's why it's important to communicate early and often with stakeholders about medium and high-level risks. It sets expectations with stakeholders about what to potentially expect during the project execution phase, and demonstrates that you've taken steps to mitigate and plan for those risks should they come up. It also gives you the opportunity to suggest ways they might be able to help you if a risk does arise. So how do you communicate risks to stakeholders during the planning phase? Well, that depends on the severity of the identified risk. For low-level risks, something as simple as an email might suffice. For example, when sending out weekly planning updates to a project stakeholder, you might list a few low-level risks that are relevant to their interests, and briefly explain how you'll address these risks if they arise. For medium-level risks, you might increase your level of communication to a direct email between yourself and the stakeholder, in which you outline the risk with more specifics and provide a detailed explanation of your plan to mitigate the risk. You might also link to your risk management plan to provide them with more information. And you might write urgent in the subject line to stress the email's importance. The serious nature of high-level risks requires a thorough and direct level of communication. When you're meeting with stakeholders to go over the project plan, you might add an agenda item to present serious risks and your plans to mitigate these risks. You can also use this time to collect feedback on your risk management plan and ask for insights from stakeholders on how they suggest handling these high-level risks. Your stakeholders might have prior experience planning for similar risks and strategies that you hadn't considered before. Risk communication is a big part of my role here at Google. As a program manager, I am constantly writing emails and delivering presentations on the status of my projects, often with the goal of sharing known risks and my risk mitigation plans. And in discussing these plans with my stakeholders, we often uncover other risks that I hadn't even considered. For example, in a recent meeting, I was presenting a potential new product to a stakeholder on a different team. In the meeting, the stakeholder flagged their concerns that my solution might create time and resource risks that could have a negative impact on their team. This discussion gave me deeper insights of my colleagues' potential risks and of the product's users' needs, which made me realize that I needed to ask my project sponsors for additional budget and resources. So it's always a good idea to discuss your plans with your stakeholders. They may have a different perspective. So to recap, it's important to communicate risks to stakeholders so that they're better able to help you should one arise. And you should tailor your communication style according to the severity of the risk. Up next, we'll review and wrap up all that we've covered. Meet me there.